So you will research what's the best diet, right? And then you say, okay, I'm going to go all in. And then you get the instructions. So you print off the menu plans and you get out your food scale. You watch a bunch of YouTube videos. You like maybe even buy a few books. Like you go all in. And this is the problem. You're very successful in a lot of other areas. And so this whole weight loss thing has been such a problem because it doesn't make sense. Usually, you work hard, you study hard, you do everything that they tell you to do, and you get success. Hello, hello. I just got off my coaching call with my program. I'm pretty pumped up. That was an awesome call. It was so fun. And I am thrilled to be here with you. My name is Dara Tomasson. I am a life coach who helps women finally get to the root of why they keep struggling with weight. And so many of us get into this trap of thinking there's only one way to do something. And so we keep trying the same thing over and over. And we know the definition of insanity is doing the same thing, expecting different results. So I'm here to help you stop that craziness and really start finding true peace with weight loss. Now, I'm going to give you, oops-a-daisy, I got a new camera and I'm not sure. So tell me, which one do you like better? A or this one? The first one or the second one? They're both not great. I'm just going to stay with this one. We want to avoid decision fatigue. Okay, so let me share my screen. And today will be a lot of information and it will be very interactive. Okay, so you can use the Q&A. I really want you to show your, be involved. Be involved. Let yourself really see what's going on. And the more interactive you are with me, the more success you're going to have. I promise. Okay. So I want you to ask yourself, what has been your experience with dieting? So you will research, do a Google search. What's the best diet, right? And then you do then you get informed. And then you say, okay, I'm going to go all in. And then you get the instructions. So you print off the menu plans and you get out your food scale, or you go and order a bunch of ketone strips on Amazon, or you go and get one of those arm continuous glucose monitor. You watch a bunch of YouTube videos, you maybe even buy a few books. You go all in. And this is the problem. I'm going to go on some tangents a few times. You're very successful in a lot of other areas. And so this whole weight loss thing has been such a problem because it doesn't make sense. Usually, you work hard, you study hard, you do everything that they tell you to do, and you get success. So why does this diet that you researched and you're smart and you're clever, why does it fail? So then you follow those instructions to the T. Then this is exhausting. So you fall off the wagon. You throw your hands in the air. And then you go back to your old habits with food. And it just feels so pointless. It feels pointless. Okay, so in the chat, tell me, can you relate? How many times have you gone through this cycle? 20? Can't even count anymore? You can use the chat. There's lots of you here. It's always so funny when people don't put things in the chat. I'm like, no one will know you. It's okay. You don't have your picture. Okay, so 7+. All right. Keep them coming, ladies. All right. So this is the thing, and this is why I'm so happy you're here, is because and this is the other thing I'm going to be full disclosure. There are women that work with me in my program and they will gain weight back. Is that a problem? No. And the reason why it's such a bold statement, but failure is one of the best teachers. So when they first come work with me, they say, oh, this looks great. We're going to use it. We're going to weight loss science is simple. We're going to learn that. And then we're going to learn how to eat and troubleshoot how our food protocol. Then we're going to learn how to feel our feelings instead of eating them. And then we're going to take 100% responsibility for ourselves. And then we're going to build self-confidence. And they're like, that's great. But then what starts happening is they're like, well, Dara mentioned something about fasting, so I should probably just go full in on fasting. Oh, but Dara mentioned something about ghrelin or leptin or insulin, so I should probably, right? And so the problem is you go all in on one thing, and then you bring all of your old diet thinking with you. And so then they will lose a bunch of weight. And they'll do the motivation thing like we all know about. And then when we don't address this emotional part and we don't really internalize the actual science, then we fall back into those old habits. But the beautiful thing is it's like a trapeze artist. If they fall, they don't die. They fall, there's a safety net there. And I'm here to help you. So even when people in my program will gain weight back, I say, perfect. Now let's document all the things that you did and let's see, why are we gaining the weight back? What were those emotional things? And so today, this webinar is going to go in the science. I'm going to teach you some cool science stuff to help you because common sense isn't that common anymore. And to be totally compassionate and understanding, our society, our culture for the last, probably since the 70s has been so mixed up with what actually is even truth. 80s was the worst. Okay. So we're going to go into some of that history. We're going to go into some of that science, and I'm here for all of it. Because if we look at one problem, kind of like I used to be I taught grade 5 and 6 science. So that's not heavy duty science. But, we have the scientific method and we all learned it at school. It's we have a hypothesis and then we come up with an idea and then we execute to see if that hypothesis worked or not. Okay. So the more that we can be the driver in our own life and look at what's really going on, the better. Okay. So, but with weight loss and with school, we didn't really have that. We didn't have that power, or we weren't given that authority. Yet when we come home with a baby, we're like, oh, I can do this, right? So we had to learn trial and error. So this is what I want to really help you with. Now, as a life coach, I will save you time and money. You don't have to waste any more money and time on diets. Now, also as a life coach, I'm going to save you not only time and money, but more importantly, I'm going to give you clarity and direction. So that assurance that what you're doing, you're going in the right direction. So just like on any vacation, you say, all right, I'm going to go on a road trip and this is my intention. I'm going to go from here to here. And there's always going to be, there could be different weather problems. There could be all sorts of challenges along the way. But so here, it's but you have the direction, right? You're I'm going to Chicago and I'm going to go on this road and that's my intention. And so now if there's obstacles that come, you're no problem. I know how to resolve obstacles. And that's why we're going to really get into what's really happening. So diets fail. We're going to stop blaming diets. So the problem, what's wrong with this approach? Tell me. What is the problem with this approach? Tell me where the crack is. Why is this a problem? Because who is it missing in here? Yeah. It's beating yourself up. It's missing you. It's missing your unique body, your upbringing, all the messages, all of the. I have one client, and she was talking about how Twiggy was the person that you needed to look like, and her mom and sister called her Husky. So she was like, I'm never going to be successful because Twiggy isn't husky. So we have to put ourselves in here. Not only that, but let's look at the definition of diet. Okay. So there's two parts to the noun: a special course of food to which one restricts oneself either to lose weight or for medical reasons. Okay. The other one is the kinds of food that a person, animal, or community habitually eats. So you could say, I have a vegetarian diet. I have a Mediterranean diet. This is the, people joke that like, I have the seafood diet, right? Like I see it, I eat it. But like this describes what kind of diet, like the type of food that you eat. Okay. Now, diets were created. So before you had a surgery, they're like, we need to reduce your weight. So let's go with a highly restrictive food plan for a short period of time to get that. Now, there's a verb of diet is restricting oneself to small amounts or special kinds of food in order to lose weight. So it was never really meant to be a long-term solution. And so now we are, the confusion is we are treating weight loss as a math formula. So our body, so this is the math. So our body needs about 1,200 calories a day to operate, right? To blink, to breathe, to digest, to have the energy, right? So if you go over that amount, then your body will save that for fuel. Isn't this a cute little fuel tank? So now the body says, oh, we have more than what we need. And so we're going to put all this extra fuel in as fat. Okay. And our leptin, so I'm going to talk a little bit about leptin here. Our leptin is the hormone that says when we have had enough. And our leptin, animals have leptin as well. So you don't see obese zebras or obese animals, right? Because they have that satiation point where they say, we've had enough, right? That the leptin hormone says, we're good. You can stop hunting. You can stop eating. And the leptin pretty much wants our body to have about 2 months worth of extra storage. Okay. So when you think about that, why are you eating more than your body needs? What would you say is your reason that you are eating? Now, there's a lot of research out there. The the U.S. diet is now, what was the stats? 500, they're eating, so the American diet are eating 500 calories more than it was back in, here we go. Yeah. The U.S. person today is eating 500 more calories per day than they did before, which, adding up, and then of course, when you bring in with the menopause, that we're not having that same level of, like, we're losing our muscle mass. And so we're not metabolizing. We don't have as much to metabolize. Our metabolism is slowed because we don't have as much muscle mass unless we're building that. So that's going to really impact our weight. Now, yes. So why are we overeating? And this is where we have to switch from math to our heart and we're going to go more into why we are doing that. So if you were to say, why do you overeat? I eat for pleasure. I like salt and sweet and cooked and fatty foods like bacon. Yes. Yeah. So why do you think you are allowing your body to have a short-term pleasure for a long-term consequence? because we can't fight science. So the more that we eat that fuel, we're carrying more weight around, and that is a huge problem. Okay. So think about yourself. Now, there's this famous story about his name is Peter. Back in it's a Dutch story about a little boy named Peter who sees the dike. There was a hole, and he put his finger in that hole because he knew that if he didn't, then it could crack even larger, and then the whole town could be flooded. And he was there all night long. And so the story is this wonderful story about this little boy who sacrificed himself, and he saved the whole town. But we're not just looking at one hole. So if you say, well, I'm just going to restrict calories, you're not addressing the real issue. We're not. So what do you think is stopping you from eating in a way that's healthy for you? So I love this thought. I've been thinking a lot about this. If weight loss was a math formula, we'd all be thin and healthy. So instead of looking at math to understand weight loss, let's go to a little history lesson, and more accurately, biology. So every human organism, plant, animal, our fuel source is all from the mitochondria. Okay. And the mitochondria, so it are the fuel source or power stations of our cells. And that mitochondria converts food into energy, and ATP stores it. So when fire was introduced, what happened was it created, we were able to chew, swallow, and eat and digest food more, which meant our energy was more efficient. So if you look at animals who have, think about a cow. They have 4 stomachs to keep up with having to fuel themselves. That the size of animal, they have to be literally chewing their cud almost all the time to try to keep having that same energy. So our bodies are wired for this negative feedback and survival loop. So, for example, our kidney, so the kidney's job is, sorry, I have it all written down. I kind of added this. So the kidney is all about hydration, right? Making sure that we have enough water. And so it can regulate through drinking and urinating. Okay, so that's the switch. So we have our brain, we need to know how much energy we need. And so leptin is that hormone that communicates when the body has had enough fuel. And like I mentioned, ideally our body should have about 2 months worth of energy because, there's famine, there's, the men might not get an animal for a while. And so we have that safety feature. We might not, catch enough fish or have enough herbs or plants or find tubers. And so this is that really sensitive system, which has helped us evolve and grow so much. Now, the problem is when the new eating. So let me just give you a little bit of historical perspective. In the 80s, there was a big push, 70s, lobbied the government about dangers of fat. So they would say things like, if you eat fat, you become fat. And so they really pushed these vegetable oils. And they also, in the 80s, produced a lot of sugar consumption by 20%. And so vegetable oils are omega-6s. And those sugars, they are, what they do is they dull those hormones. It kind of slows down the hormones, that communication. And when the cigarette company, can't remember the name of it. Which one was it? Anyways, the big cigarette corporation, they started making snack foods when cigarettes started getting all like, it's not cool to smoke. It's really bad for us. So they started creating all these snack foods, which of course is all these, they call them, what do they call them? Designer foods. Designer foods. So they have bright packaging. They're very attractive. They're very exciting. And so they really attract a lot of buyers. And then there's a lot of course, propaganda about the importance of snacking, and then the fear of hunger, which, by the way, remember our grandmas, our great grandmas that said, don't eat before dinner, you're going to spoil your appetite. We've lost that common sense approach, and we have so much fear around food. All right. So the result is obesity is a global health epidemic. And so where are you in this scale, and why are you this way? So I want to look at this is the pandemic. The obesity epidemic. The recipe is leptin resistance, insulin resistance. So now we especially with the higher stress that we have more, and also the highly processed foods, that of course is increasing our insulin and the need to make more insulin because of the stress. We have highly addictive foods. We are emotionally immature. We are not taught to feel our feelings. When I talk about this emotion wheel, so many of my clients are just blown away. What did we learn? Happy, mad, sad, glad, maybe. Overwhelmed with misinformation. Now that we have the internet, you will never get to the end of the internet. There is just copious, insane amounts of information, and everyone can just go on there and say they're an expert. We're an influencer culture, and even influencers, they are highly persuaded, right? Eating on the go, we're really busy, and this convenience, and then we're putting our efforts into the wrong things. So we were all taught calories in, calories out, but not all calories are created equally. And in fact, to quote Dr. Andrew Jenkins, he said, I really like this one. It's not the calories in the food, it's the food in the calories. So if we are constantly eating the wrong, like processed foods, all of even smoked meats, with all the nitrates and all of that, those foods, those calories that we're actually giving ourselves, those are subpar. Those are not high quality. Those are not helpful. So I love that. It's not the calories in the food. It's the food in the calories. And so how do we help ourselves with that? Now, when we go to, I want you to have this thinking in your brain. I want you to really think about, okay, what was the messaging around food for you? What was what was modeled to you of how to use food? Did you ever feel like you were actually in charge of your own food, that what you thought mattered, or was food always told you? So what I want to switch gears a little bit on, I want you to understand, what was it that wired you and your relationship with food? So we only get one crack at childhood, all right? And the way that we grew up was the way that we actually started to wire our brain. And I know this because, some of us, what do we do when we're stressed? We work. Some of us nap. Some of us go watch TV. Some of us go and, help somebody. Some of us go and shopping, or they gossip. I don't know. Some of us just get really, really quiet. Some of us are really, really loud, right? Some of us go and take off for a while, because we all are wired differently because of the way we were raised. And unless we figure this out, we are not going to make a change. So let's think about this. Your emotional connection. So what were the reactions from your family or your family or responsible adults when you showed emotions? So tell me in the chat. If you started to cry, what would they do? Did you get sent to your room? Or were you given food? Like if you were being fussy or something, would they give you crackers? Or like what was it? Or they ignored you, they shamed you? Okay. So what happened when you cried? So don't be a crybaby, grow up already, stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about. Or what happened when you were happy? You ate cake, you celebrated, you had a dance recital. Oh, let's all go out for dinner. You got an award. Let's make, what's your favorite food? I'll make it for you. Your birthday, all of those things. So how does that make sense that your brain was wired to eat when you were sad? Just let that soak in for a second. Next one, structured eating. So growing up, you were often told what to eat and when, leading to a disconnect with natural hunger and fullness signals. So how does this relate? So when did you eat? It's time to eat breakfast, dinner, and lunch and snacks. You were told, look at the school system. It regulates kids, just like the cows in the field, right? And if you didn't eat what the adult gave you, you were in big trouble. Like, we do not waste food. So what was the message there? You can't trust yourself. I don't know when I'm hungry. Yeah. Made fun of and told to cry some more, then laughed at. Totally. Yeah. So what happened if you weren't hungry? Well, wasting food is totally disrespectful. They're like, there are children who are starving. You aren't grateful enough. Do you know how many kids would want to have regular meals? And so how does this make sense that you aren't aware of hunger and self-trust around food? Let that soak in. Okay, the next one is learned eating. So eating habits are often formed like handwriting. We learn by copying those around us, shaping our relationship with food from any age. So let's look at this. So what were the rules for a good girl? Eat what was served you. What you feel or want isn't important. You need someone else to tell you about your body and what it needs. Okay? And what are the consequences if you didn't follow the rules? Rejection, major consequences, unhappy emotions, which you weren't taught. You were probably like ignored. You were probably neglected. You were left on your own. So how does that make sense that your brain was wired to eat when you were sad? So we talk about these learned behaviors. Now, eating behaviors are learned like handwriting through observation, that mimicking, right? So those all started as a young age. So feelings and emotions were not always taught or valued. Yeah, sit at the table until my plate was clean. Totally. And so, and then not only that, but look at the examples of what was acceptable. What made you an acceptable human? Were you like Twiggy, a supermodel body, pretty much anorexic, the 20, what is that? More curvy? So what was that for you? What was the acceptable body, ideal body through the ages? So women's bodies are not trends. Who was your icon? We had this Marilyn Monroe, finally there was some curviness. And then here, Twiggy looked like she was just completely starved. And then in the 80s, like if you didn't have muscle and, larger breasts. Okay. So what we need to do is we need to look at what's really going on. Okay. So we have survival strategies. So we needed to belong as a child, right? So these are the 3 P's. Perfectionism. If I'm perfect, they can't reject me. People pleasing. If I make them happy, then I can't be rejected. And then procrastination, which is if I wait and let others make a mistake, then I don't get in trouble. And also I can learn from them. So the reason why being a life coach is so powerful for permanent weight loss is that we finally go into and look at the big picture. So we need to get awareness of what's really going on. And so far in this training, I want you to share in the comments what was your experience as a kid about food? Did you ever feel like you were allowed to say when you wanted to eat and what you were allowed to eat? Did you always have to ask an adult permission? Was there a lot of secret eating behind closed doors to exert some sort of control back? Like, what was that experience for you? And as you think about it, and as you hear me describe these three different scenarios, what would it be like just to give yourself this moment to say, oh man, no wonder I struggle with food. My dad used food to control me. If I wasn't a good girl, I'd get my food taken away. Or if I didn't finish it, I would be punished. I'd have to eat it for breakfast. Okay. So remember how we talked about that young boy about, plugging that hole and staying up all night? He saved that town. He was brave and self-sacrificing. So the problem for us is that we are not and the reason I bring this up is because if you say, oh, well, I just need to follow a diet, I'll just put my finger in there and just follow that diet, and I'll be really good at following that diet. It's so much more complicated than that. And so that's the problem. We say, well, I'm a good girl. I put my finger in there and I saved it and I did everything. But the problem is weight loss is so much more complicated. So your brain is the same as the cell phone battery. It only has so much energy until it's drained. So have you had that experience where by 6 o'clock or so, if you had a really busy day, you're like, I'm done. I'm decision fatigue, right? You're like, I can't make one more decision. I just need to sit and rest. So when you're trying to solve a math formula that isn't math, you will be drained and exhausted. So what drains our battery every day? I should be better. Her body is better than mine. Why do I still eat when I'm not really hungry? How can I still struggle with my weight after all these years? I know how to lose weight, but why does it always come back on? I'm so sick of battling with weight. I might as well give up. I must be broken since I still have the same old struggle. I suppose my worst nightmare is true. I am not good enough. So, what you were taught about your worth and your body. So you were doing the best you knew. Okay. So we have been feeding that crazy lie that fat is bad. Our governments have messed us over. Okay. Scientists have been influenced by, hey, if you guys say that it's okay to drink sugar like Pepsi, we'll donate a whole bunch of money to your research. This happened at the University of Toronto. That's why Dr. Jason Fung was like, I don't want to be here. Right? We get these corporate greediness, and then it's like this dilemma. It's like, well, they want the money to do the research, right? So you learned how to eat the way you learned handwriting, by copying. You weren't taught that feelings mattered. You were told what to eat, when to eat, what to eat, and that you needed to clean your plate. And if you didn't, then you were in big trouble. Food was scarce. Wasting it was like throwing away money. One body type became the model for acceptable behavior. Like the new behavior. Like if you don't look like this, then you're not acceptable. School taught comparison, validation from others, not from yourself, aka report cards, and teachers know best. So what you were taught about your worth, you were doing the best you knew. Okay. You learned how to eat the way you learned handwriting. So just like this example on the picture, if the window has a leak, it will be not efficient, right? The house, all the effort you put into heating the house will be thwarted because it's just letting in all this cold air. So one of our ways of struggling is that we don't know how to regulate our own emotions. So when we talk about emotional eating, which by the way, I have its amazing new class. It's a standalone class. But when you use food. Like you don't know how to feel your feelings. And so eating quieted that noise. So now we have wired our brain to say a new unhealthy wiring. So the brain has a thought, the hormones communicate to the body, and then feelings happen. But if you were taught that you should not feel your feelings, then what would you do? You would intervene by adding in sugar as your fuel. You would also add in things like scrolling or blaming yourself. So just like with Brene Brown said that, is this the quote? Yes. Brene Brown said, if I look perfect, live perfect, work perfect, I can avoid or minimize criticism, blame, and ridicule. She goes on to say, we lug it around hoping it protects us from experiencing judgment, shame, blame, when all it really does is keep us from being seen. So when we think about a shield, it's like this perfectionism. That is why I wrote the 12-step perfectionist recovery program. That is why I've struggled so much, because I felt like if I could just be perfect, then I will be accepted. We all are wired to belong. And so this emotional eating has been such a challenge, because what we're doing, and this is like with people pleasing, right? It's like a way to try to stay, if our grandma brings us a bunch of food and looks at us the whole time and is like, eat, 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 and we don't do that, then we could be rejected. Okay. So this people pleasing is like that safety net where individuals seek validation and acceptance from others to feel secure, and we exhaust ourselves. So I want you to think about your survival strategies. How often are you turning to that all or nothing thinking, that perfectionist thinking? How often do you fall off that bandwagon, the diet bandwagon, and think about our biology? And the reason why is because we are addressing the symptom and not getting to the source. So I love to use this analogy. If those of you who've been working with me, you hear it. But imagine you have a broken arm and you go to the doctor and the doctor says, well, what's wrong? And you say, oh, my arm is in so much pain. I just feel terrible. So the doctor will say, oh, I know what to do about pain. I'll give you some pain medication. Now, imagine if the doctor didn't go and get an x-ray and didn't set the arm. So now you're constantly walking around with this broken arm. And no matter how much pain medication you take, you'll ever be okay again. My daughter was on a date. They were wall climbing, and she fell on her elbows, and she thought that she broke her one elbow. The other one was really bruised. But she went and got the x-ray because she wanted to make sure that, like, if it was broken, we got to fix it, right? So now, how often are you using food to not feel your feelings? How often are you using food to distract yourself from what's really going on? So what we need to do is we have to learn how we were wired. I was coaching a client today on, she gets, I call it the domino buffering game, where we have a thought and then we want to distract ourselves from it. So recognize your emotional trigger, what those are for you is essential. Because you were raised your way. And even if you're in your siblings, in your family, even though we were all raised in the same home, we all have different experiences because we're all unique. And the way we think about something and the way that we react is our own unique way from our own ways of thinking about it. Okay? So when you learn your wiring, like eat when you're sad, don't ask for what you want, always do what the adults say, don't refuse food, use food to control adults. So when you see your own patterns, like identify reoccurring patterns and thought patterns, empowers you to break free from the cycle of emotional eating and develop healthier habits moving forward. So now, like if you realize, oh, I used to just make a fuss when I didn't get my own way, and then people just like did what I wanted. That was cool. Or when you blame others when you're upset, it's like, oh, if I blamed other people, then I didn't have to take responsibility for myself. Cool. That's a strategy. It's never my fault. Do you know people like that? You talk to them and they're like, it's never my fault. And you're like, everything is happening to me and I never have a voice. So that victim, some of us have been playing the victim card our whole lives. Or how about this one? They want to be in control, so they become a control enthusiast. And they try to control everything. You know people like that, right? And sometimes you're that person. And I know when I'm being controlling, I don't like it and I'm not proud of myself. But that was one of the things that I used to do as a kid. So I'm really working at rewiring that for myself. I want independence, but don't trust myself because I never learned to trust my own opinion. This one's really challenging, especially for those of us who had a lot of responsibility as a young age. I have 3 younger siblings that were born. So I was born in 73 and my mom had 75, 77, and 78. So by the time I was 5 years old, I'd already been taking care of my sister and my brother most of the time. Okay. So how to solve weight loss once and for all? What do we need to do? Well, look at my ladies here. How to solve. Okay. So when we, the underlying pattern shifts, we need to start looking at what really is the problem. So you have a choice. You can either decide to grow, like to change, or you can stay in the uncomfortable familiarity. So you're like, I just like to eat ice cream before I go to bed. I put myself in kind of a comatose state and it just kind of like chills me out. And then I go to sleep. Next day, same pattern. But at least I know what I can do. And at least I know that ice cream's waiting for me. Or you can learn how to have those difficult conversations. And then that way you improve your health. So you no longer need that ice cream every night. So when you make that choice of saying, I don't want that, like all those old food stories, I don't want them to keep playing forward. I want to finally go in and rewire my brain. That's what I do. So here's what's required for permanent weight loss. So taking 100% responsibility for your food choices. So you learn to trust yourself for your unique life. And this is really challenging because we think, well, I've failed so many times. I've been unsuccessful in my weight loss. Well, it's because you never got the broken arm fixed. You've just been taking Tylenol the whole time. You're like, okay, I finally have to go and deal with it. I got to go get them to re-break my arm. Okay. And so this is the part where we have to go and rewire that childhood. So your unique life experiences wired you to react in different ways. So like I said, some eat chocolate, some go shopping, some scroll for hours, some take naps, some stay up all night long. We all are unique. And so the process of changing is unique.